Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, and we might be a kind of fruitful first fruits of all he created. My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring right about the righteous life God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and of evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word, but does not do what it says, is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. If anyone considers himself religious, yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. The Word of God.
This other fellow, older couple, was going to bed one night, and she went to the full-length mirror and gave herself a good hard look, and she says, "Oh, my body is such a mess. I'm overweight. My backside is hanging there. My thighs are fat. My arms are flabby." She turns over and says, "Could you say something nice about me?" And he says, "Well, sounds like your eyesight's fine." I don't think that's what James was writing about, was it? In 1965, my family left our big house in a little town, and we moved to a big town and a small house. My grandfather was against it. He didn't want us to move, really. He wanted us to rent and find a nice place before we bought. We went ahead, my folks went ahead and bought it. And I remember when he first came with Grandma, and he got out of the car, you could just see him looking the place over. It was small. It was one of those little cracker boxes from the 60s. And it was pink. And he looked it over, and my grandfather was somebody who would never, if he couldn't say something good, he wouldn't say anything. And he spent a lot of time that morning not saying anything, until finally he looked out, stood on the little tiny front porch, just a little step there, and looked at the tree in the front yard, which was a huge old oak tree. It had been there years before the houses were built in that pasture. It shaded and covered the entire front lawn. It was that big. He looked at that oak and he said, "Well, I like the tree." Now, my grandfather was not what you would call a hugely religious man. I don't know that he carried a Bible around for anything. In fact, all the years I knew him, when he was at home in Kansas, he never went to church. He was a rancher, farmer. He had lots of things to do on a Sunday morning. But I think even though he didn't do church a lot, which is, better to do church than not, but he had this doing his faith, in that he was quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to show his anger. He was a very opinionated man and very taciturn, because he didn't want to spread bad news in the world. It's a good idea. In fact, 3 weeks ago, we talked about how the body feels fear and anger before the mind really knows it. In fact, the brain, is monitoring the body, and when the stomach is clenched and the pulse rate is up and the blood pressure is rising, the mind says, "Oh, I must be afraid or angry. What is it?" He looks around. Well, that's true with all of our emotions. The body the physical body changes first. When you see somebody smile or grimace, the muscles on your face, just for a split second, go into that mode. Start to move to match that expression. And your mind then looks at the muscles and says, oh, we must be smiling. Oh, we must be hurting. Oh, we must be sad. Nothing like a smile to make us happy. It works. Even better yet, when somebody else smiles, we automatically smile back. In fact, they say that people who are paralyzed, have paralysis in their faces or their bodies, have a harder time feeling emotions. And so it's our whole lives that are tied up in this good news. And James is saying, it's not just the head. It's not just the ears. It's got to be our whole lives. And today, what he's saying is not that we have our actions make us holy. It is that our holiness must lead to action. To just come in here and listen to the sermon is not enough. We must be doers of the words, not just hearers. He says what true religion is. Now, everybody's got true religion. But for James, it was very simple. Helping the orphan and widow under distress, and avoiding being polluted by the world. Polluted by the world. Thinking that your happiness is tied up in the stuff you got. That if you just had a little more money, you'd have it all made. That if you could be rich, you could be and famous and beloved by everybody, you would be whole and holy. As we've seen with Michael Jackson, that isn't exactly true, is it? Not polluted by the world and helping the orphan and the widow. In today's terms, that would be the fatherless child and the unmarried mom, the single mom. Those who struggle in the world under distress. Our hearts must reach out to them because, in fact, what we give is not us. In his first line, James is saying, when we give a gift, that gift is not from us. It is from God, flowing through us. James is calling us to be conduits of God's love. If you felt it, if you've known it, if you felt salvation, it's time to live it, because no one in this world is alone. A smile is contagious. And when you smile and somebody smiles back at you, then you smile back at them and you feel it. And life is new. No man is an island. No man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me. Each man's grief is my own. James calls us to live every single day in the faith we know in Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God. He said,